Hello, Matthew here with the lovely Christina Babnis.
Hello.
And I managed to obligate her into an interview with me for More Than a Machine. So, just going to get right into it. Now, you've recently gotten your bachelor's degree. Would you mind telling our prestigious audience what that was in?
Sure. I got it in social science with an education concentration. That was actually a while ago now. I think it was like 2013.
Okay.
So, but I then started working on my master's, and about halfway through, and that's going to be in social work.
Okay. All right, so you're on a bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, I had back surgery, a few of them actually. So that's put me on, temporary leave of absence.
Okay.
Hopefully temporary. We'll see what happens.
Well, if I know you, nothing is really temporary when you set your mind to something, but I'm sure we're going to get into that. Would you mind telling our audience exactly what kind of surgery?
Sure. I had a spinal fusion in 2014, and that one didn't take, so I ended up getting really bad pain from that for about a year after that, and I didn't know why. I was walking crooked, I had bad sciatica, so I had to have the entire thing redone in October of this past year, and it was for scoliosis that I had to have it done.
Okay. All right, and obviously the results are a lot better now.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'm feeling like normal again, almost, so.
Right, but you're still a cyborg.
Of course.
Yeah, that's a cool
Next
part.
I'm getting like the Wolverine
claws. Oh,
yeah.
that'd be amazing.
That's next.
All right, so what part of mental health social work field are you hoping to work in?
Like you said, the mental health field, I was thinking about that for a long time. My mom's bipolar, so that's what got me interested in how the brain works and how the thought processes have to do with our ways of interacting with other people in the world and how that affects our general well-being. So that's what got me originally interested in the mental health field. But since then, I've interned at an organization called Pride for Youth with LGBTQ teenagers. And a lot of them were just so amazing. And my perspective about what in a society is the root of a lot of people's problems changed. So I used to think that a lot of what people experienced and what a lot of their challenges were from something that the individual did or didn't do or how they were raised, and I thought it was all about individual problems mostly. I knew culture had an influence, but I didn't realize how much is systemic from society that we as people deal with, and the types of things that certain groups of people have to overcome. So that's what got me more interested in macro social work versus micro, which is the individual versus larger groups of people. So ultimately, I'd like to have a nonprofit organization. So that's my ultimate goal, but we'll see what happens. I still have half of my master's to get. So.
All right. Well, what are some of the challenges that you've overcome up to this point?
A lot of it's been physical, but like we've talked about before, a lot of that led to, problems with depression and anxiety and things like that, because when you're in pain all the time, it does something to the brain. It really does. Yeah. So you start to think like, poor me, and you start to have like a constant pity party, and you just feel really bad about yourself. You feel like you're not like your friends can't possibly understand you, and your thoughts start to get cyclical and very negative, and you tend to isolate yourself in those situations when you're feeling that way. That's how people generally respond. As you've put it before, you go and retreat to lick your wounds. Like that's what people do sometimes to cope. So, and
that becomes a profession after a while.
Yeah, seriously. It feels like it sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, it's a profession nobody really chooses.
Right.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because I know a lot of people who are affected by mental health conditions such as depression, like I've got. I've got a form of depression called dysthymia. So I don't really have the big ups and downs. I have the long
Drawn
troughs,
out, lows.
highs and lows, and don't go as extreme. But for some people, I know for myself, I can get into those cycles and still go out about my day. Some people get depression that is so absolutely crippling, and there's no real understanding from people who don't have it. Now, in one sense, it's a physical affectation that causes mental problems, that the way that they manifest themselves. Now, you had a spinal fusion. You said before that you were on bed rest, you were isolated, so that caused a lot of the depressive thoughts through the isolation and the pain. Now, for other people, it starts just in the brain, that the chemicals are out of balance, and then they start having these thoughts because the chemicals are in their brain are out of balance. So if you had to extend a piece of advice to the sufferers and those around them, just focusing on just depression as an example to other mental disorders, what would you say? What would you think would help both the sufferers and the people around them? Because you seem to have a lot of empathy between seeing things with your mom and suffering things from yourself. So what would you say?
Well, there's no cookie-cut answer for every person, of course.
Very true.
But all I can say is for people who don't suffer with mental health issues or who don't understand what it's like, education is really important. Maybe, just read up on certain disorders that, people in your life may or may not have if they're undiagnosed. But if you want to really understand, that's the key, is education. Educate yourself about the different disorders that exist. And I get advice for people who are depressed or who have been depressed. That's a tough one. I guess I would have to say, sometimes you have to feel a lot of pain in order to have the motivation to want to change it. So until you reach that point, it's kind of hard to find the motivation to want to do something about it.
Very good.
So, but if you are at that point, I guess my advice would be just to continue treading water, just keep on surviving, and tomorrow's a new day. That's all I can say. And I think personally, the more educated I've gotten about mental health, the more control over the situation I feel like I've had. So it gives me like a sense of peace to understand what it is that I'm going through or what my loved ones are going through. So that way I can have more empathy for them and be there for them if I can, I mean, I'm not a mental health professional yet, but and you can't be for friends and family anyway.
No.
So
Can't be a prophet in your own kingdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. And I like how you said that education is a big part of it. So education for the public in general, and for people who might have someone, and there's that word might, that if a person hasn't been diagnosed, a lot of people have this perception that in our society we're all too quick to look for a diagnosis and a pill, but at the same time, the other side of that coin is we need that diagnosis. We need to know if there's something wrong, something that could be medicated, something that could be talked out, something that could just be adjusted for. And I like how you stress that education for other people. I know when I went to see if maybe I had autism, it educated me a lot more about autism. So that I remember there's this moment I was in the store with my daughter, and there's a boy who's about 13, 14. He was holding his father's hand. There was something not quite right. And he starts screaming, which I knew right away. And my daughter, she's 4, she says, "Daddy, what's he?" I said, "He's stimming." Just right away, I knew exactly what it was. I had nothing else to say to her. She just says, "Okay." Because when you're able to, when you give a kid an answer. So it's the same thing for a lot of people, you think, right?
I agree, yeah. I think that once you kind of have an understanding of what you're going through, you know a little bit more about what to expect.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I feel like it breaks down a lot of the stereotypes and the stigmas associated with mental health. Because like I've told you before, people who have mental health issues can really function in society without a problem. There's so much negative stigma with mental health issues, but my mom raised me on her own, single parent, and she had a job and held down the job and, you know, did the best that she could for me. And, you know, she functioned just fine. She had a great circle of friends, and she always, you know, made sure to take care of her own mental health. She always went to therapy. She tried different medications to try to like improve her mood. And
So she knew there was never a silver bullet. She had to keep moving.
she's a social
on
worker
it.
too.
Oh, wow. That is,
Yeah.
so I never knew that about your mom. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that people need to do on both ends. The people who suffer from mental health conditions. And it sounds to me like, you know, it's funny. It sounds to me like there's a lot that plays in with our development, not just as people, but as a culture overall. That if we all want to have a better life, we all have to do it together. And we all have to be willing to stare our own darkness in the face and say, I don't know what's behind this door. You know, I hear, I hear scratching, I hear hissing, I hear horrible noises. I'm going to open it and I'm going to find out.
It's scary for some people, for sure, to face their own demons, so to speak, and really figure out what it is that's going on. So, you know, that's great that you in your own personal journey have been trying to figure out what's going on with you, whatever that is.
Thank you.
You know, I think that's very brave. A lot of people wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's probably due to some other undiagnosed mental disorder. So we'll see what happens. But I want to say that I know you're moving, and I want to say thank you for being an inspiration to me, for being such a good positive force in my life. Your empathy, your understanding. I mean, there's plenty of things we disagree on, but we've always had amazingly extravagant conversations.
Definitely.
And I'm going to miss the hell out of it, but we'll, thanks to technology, nobody's really all that far away anymore.
This is very true.
So, just want to say to everyone else, to echo what Christina said, is to face the scary. Simple as that. If I had to give this interview, this episode a name, it would be Face the Scary. And that alone will help you too to become more than a machine. Anything else you want to say in parting words?
No, not that I can think of. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't expect pros all the time. I don't expect it from myself. I'm amazed I got that far.
Right on.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.